So how do I get my
You're live now.
action back?
Yeah, they
no.
all have to.
Hey, okay.
No, it's here.
They'll be here soon, hopefully, because they'll see that it's live.
Did you send out like an invite for the other one or something?
It just shows up live. Okay, hey everybody. I promise you I will get better at the tech. Good morning, everybody. No audio? Should be audio. No sound. Let me just go to the microphone. Declan, the audio's not working. Is it better? Do you have it yet? I'm trying to get my son to help me. Okay, great. Perfect. It must have just been laggy. Okay, thank you. I'm sorry again that I'm on the other live and then I can never get it to work properly. But anyways, it's working and I'm here for an hour. We're going to be here for a whole hour today. So let's get rolling and hopefully everybody will be able to easily migrate over to this live stream. Okay, yep, I hear you. Oops is right. But if I let that debilitate me, I'd be debilitated all day long, right? Okay, so hey, thank you for the support. I really appreciate it for sure. Thank you everybody for joining me. So the cool thing is I put out a video the other day asking for people's questions. Hey, Shubho, how's it going? Good vibes is right. You know it. I put out a video asking for questions and there was 162 questions or comments at least. So I'm going to start with a few of, yeah, I hear you, elbow cough for sure. I am going to start with some of the, let me just see here, some of the themes in the questions that people put in there. And then we will, making sure everything's still working here. Okay. Yep. Hey, everybody. Yeah, great. Thanks. I'm glad you're starting your day. Hopefully you're on the West Coast because it's noon here. Okay, so I'm going to start with the themes of the questions that were primarily in those comments, and then I'll also be answering questions that are here. I already see a great one from Joshua. Can watching porn lead to poor decision making in a relationship? Yes, that would be an absolutely yes. So we will get there. Oh no, we have someone 2 a.m. in Australia. Natty Natman, 9:35 p.m. You're totally right, Andre. It should be illegal. Let's give everybody a couple of minutes to trickle in. There's a lot of people from India, and the reason being, one of the questions is why is there a lot of people from India? India has been hit hard by porn this year. Thank you for the respect. Hit hard this year because of COVID. And then because of COVID, the porn industry is acutely aware of that. So they made porn more accessible for people in India. And it just took off, unfortunately, because of the addictive nature like never before. So we have a lot of people, that are being impacted in India. And I talk to those people all the time. Does porn cause PE? Yes, it does. So it can cause premature ejaculation. It creates the erectile dysfunction. It can make it so that you go forever, which some people think is a good thing in a sexual experience. Unfortunately, it's terrible for your brain. Yeah, I can initiate a group where we can chat, but I am absolutely just thrilled to have this community here. And I'm focusing my time and energy on on making sure that I can be responsive to people here first and foremost, but we can get some more things going. Okay, so I'm going to start with the themes in just a second, but let me tell you one or two cool updates on what I have going on to be able to help you more and more and more. First of all, I have a new camera, new tech, which was giving me some more tech issues this morning. New camera. I've got a sweet new laptop, which I put a picture of on my Instagram feed, which I'm trying to be better about posting information for you and some cool things that I have going on. I met with the nonprofit attorney that I hired to make this part of my business a nonprofit organization so that I can raise money, so I can bring tons of free content and support to you all. She told me that my application's all ready to roll and that it's being processed and that it will take somewhere around 100 days to be approved. So hopefully we can look for that at the end of the year, because that's really exciting to be able to answer all your questions, hopefully all the time, and give you the support, not only to answer your questions, give you the tools and the techniques, because I'm here to motivate you, inspire you, and mostly empower you through action steps. So before I get going with the concepts that I want to share with you, I want you to remember these concepts can be made into action steps for change. And that's what we're here for. I want you to take action steps so you can make the changes that you need. And AR, who hopefully is going to be here. If you're here, AR, give me a comment, because he asked me a question that I literally promised him that I would answer. And I know he was in the other chat. So I'm going to wait to answer those questions because I want to make sure he gets over here so I can answer them for him. But here's some of the themes that we want to talk about. We want to talk about pornography consumption, what it actually does in your brain with dopamine, real quick, because someone put a question in the comments saying they know this is a noob question, but can I just explain that a little bit? Okay, AR, you're here. I'm glad to see that you are here, because I want to touch upon your questions because they are absolutely great and they're the main themes that people want to know. So here are AR's questions, and then I'll move on with the others. Is that number one question is that when you are trying to leave pornography behind, and we know that you're going back to the screen to get that dopamine hit, to take the edge off of life, because you've taught your brain to go back to the screen to get that, flood of dopamine. But what happens inadvertently is when you go back into the world, then what happens is everything's more stressful because there's not enough dopamine there. There can't be. There's tons of dopamine in the screen, not enough in your real life. And simultaneously, what happens is then there's lower levels of dopamine in your life. So your life literally feels more stressful. And the question that AR asked me is that, so what if you interact with someone and they tell you some bad news? Or I see so many comments of people who are like, my girlfriend broke up with me and that led me back to a relapse. Or I had an argument with my partner and that led me back to the screen. So the question is, how do you protect your energy is the way I see it. How do you protect yourself so that you're not impacted by other people's bad news, other people's way that they treat you, maybe if someone is angry at you, if there's dynamics that are thrown off, how do you make it so that you can not go back and have a slip or a relapse? How do you protect your energy? Now this works, and hopefully you have gotten the sense that the number one thing I want you to do is be able to leave pornography behind. But the number two thing is, this is an optimal performance channel. I'm here to share with you how you can get your brain in its best spot so that you can reach its optimal mode and rock out the best life that you want for yourself, not that society wants for you, that you want for yourself and that you can have. So the way that you do it is you have to be able to protect yourself from what other people have going on. Number one thing you need to do, I know it is the question and the answer, but you have to stay away from the screen, because when you go back to pornography, it's making it so that you are more stressed out, you are more irritable, you feel more depressed, you feel more anxious, you are angrier. So then when you go into the world, people rub you wrong, but not necessarily because of them. It's because of you and the state that you are in. So you have to leave the screen behind, start using the headband, the brain training headband that I talk about if you have it. If not, start meditating or start creating just quiet time for yourself so you can hear what your brain is saying. And in doing so, you can bring that energy down. Now, if someone tells you bad news or they do something that frustrates you or makes you mad, what do you do then? You have to treat your energy like your most important resource. So I've had a few of these instances this week. I guess it's the nature of the beast in the human condition. But, I literally have had to shake off a couple experiences where I don't let them stick. So when you are in a good spot, this is the way that it works. When your brain is working well, your positive brain energy resonates out from you. So you're in a beautiful position to be able to help other people who have bad news or feel angry because you're in a really good spot, and then your brain will resonate out to other people, and other people's brains will attune to yours. But if you're in a bad spot and they're in a bad spot, your brain is going to attune to theirs. So you have to think about your brain as your most important resource and protect it from other people. So number one, don't put yourself in that position where, you're listening to someone else's drama story for an hour. And of course, if you're there to be, a lending ear to your friend, that's a really beautiful thing. But if you're not in a position to be able to give instead of receive that, and that's what it comes down to. If you can give love to that person and not receive all the stuff they're telling you, then you can do it. If not, you don't want to put yourself in that position. And you can do it quickly and offer a lending ear, but then don't absorb yourself in it. If you find that you feel frustrated and that you want to shake it off, then you have to do something that helps you move on from that experience. And the number one thing that you can do is quiet your mind and not let your brain chew on that thing. But it's through the offensive strategies. And that's what we're talking about here. It's through optimal brain performance. Okay, so let's see. Let me say hi to everybody. So, yep, the same questions. Am I in recovery from Charles Neely? I think we all are in recovery from something. I know that's a non-answer. The actual answer is no. I have not had a pornography addiction. But what I can tell you is I've personally been steeped in pornography addiction recovery, helping people around me personally for at least 5 years. And before that, I've been helping people. So I am here for it. And it is a daily part of my existence. So let's see what else we have. Erectile dysfunction. Well, let's talk about erectile dysfunction. And I promise you, AR, I'll get to your other two questions. Okay, so erectile dysfunction, what happens there? Now, we know the science shows that so many younger people are suffering from erectile dysfunction because when you watch pornography, and especially if you're edging, we have a lot of edging questions too, so I'm going to incorporate that in. If you are going back to the screen consistently, frequently, and with intensity, I'm going to break that down for here because I don't usually break it down in the videos. Consistently. So that can be every day. If it's every couple hours, that's worse. If it's every few days, it's still consistent. Frequency is going to be, if it is every day, that's the frequency every single day. If it's every 3 days, that's the frequency. If it's every 3 hours, that's even more frequency. Intensity is the genres or whatever you're watching. And you know what I'm talking about. I try never to be triggering. So as the genres escalate and what you're watching, the more extreme they become, that gives your brain more and more dopamine. So then your brain's getting this massive flood, which is going to create more problems in your life. And then what it does is it's frying out the reward center in the middle of your brain. It's literally frying out the receptors and then the ability of the receptors to communicate the feelings of pleasure to the rest of your body and your mind. So what happens is when you go back consistently, frequently, and with intensity, and especially if you're edging, and I know I see comments, oh, she doesn't know what edging is. I do know what edging is. And there's different terminology for edging. The way that I'm talking about it here is, and you can do it internally, mentally. You don't even have to watch porn. And that is another theme that we're going to talk about is what's the deal with fantasy and how bad is fantasy for me? So edging is one way, if you stay in a pornography session and you're moving from content to content, usually escalating the intensity. And, I know some people relate with my, 50 tabs, or some people are like, 50 tabs, what is she talking about? But having many tabs open and moving from tab to tab to tab and escalating the intensity of what you're watching, what you're doing is you're lingering your brain in this dopamine flood, like this massive flood. And then you're opening the gates a little bit more and you're letting more in. And then you're opening the gates a little bit more. And essentially, you are frying your brain, frying it more, frying it even more. And people with edging habits tend to have some pretty big issues that can be difficult to come back from. And those issues, you can come back, but I will tell you, because I know that's going to be a question. Yes, you can come back. You can come back. I see a question. Have I ever suffered from social anxiety? The answer is yes. I'm going to get to that one because there's some good stories there. So what happens is you're frying out your brain there. So the way out is you have to leave the screen behind. Your brain will start to unwire that pattern, and those receptors and those sensors in your brain for reward will start to heal themselves. And then you will be able to bring your brain online. But in the short run, it leads to erectile dysfunction because your brain it's sending the signals to your rest of your body, including, all the aspects that are needed. And what will happen is you can't be aroused like you used to be because all of this flood of dopamine and these gates being opened. But it's never too late. So that is totally true. It's not too late for any of this. Brains heal. Neuroplasticity shows, I'm going to tell you 2 stories. Science shows that brains can heal across our entire lifetime. And the way that your brain uses electrical energy, that's neurophysiology, that can heal across your lifetime. What also can heal are the cells. So when you leave the habit behind, and especially the more strategies and tools and action steps, remember action steps, the more action steps that you take, the better and the easier and the faster it will be for your brain to come online, rewire itself, and to heal itself. So that is the way out. I also promise I will get to the question of fetishes because that's another theme that I have written down. Okay, so let's move on to social anxiety. Have I ever had social anxiety? Well, so many girls staring at on day 45. You know it. Okay, so I'm just reading a couple questions. I will talk about porn-induced ADHD too. Let's talk about social anxiety for just a second. I'm just looking for my air conditioning because I feel like I'm going to melt, and I moved it over here. Okay, so now let's talk about social anxiety. I still don't love to go out into the world. I'm a total introvert. Sitting in front of this camera actually is not as bad for me as if I had to go to a social function. And I know it probably seems weird, but I think most of us struggle with social anxiety, but porn makes social anxiety so much worse. And I'll tell you why, because you start to think of life as performance instead of an experience. And so if you're worried about what people think about you in the performance of life, then that becomes anxiety provoking. The way out of that is to make it so that it's experiences that you are having with other people. But I have lots of strategies for that because, in fact, I don't love to engage in, social activities. I do it all the time though. And I am literally a champion at it, but I have one strategy for you is before you go do anything social, think about what you could talk about with the people that are going to be there. I always do that. So if I know we're going to a party and I know, this person's going to be there and that person's going to be there, then I will have things prepared to ask that person. You can just ask questions to people and they will literally love you. So that's one way around social anxiety. There's also a study on power posing. And so power posing is, think of your favorite action, person or your favorite superhero. Of course, I'm channeling my Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman. And I was doing this with my little daughter the other day. She's almost 11. And we were cruising to the store because we needed something. And I was telling her, she's like, I don't like walking into these stores. And I'm like, you know what? Let's power pose, because when you power pose, it makes you more confident. And to be honest with you, we live far out from any grocery stores, and we ran out of half and half for coffee. You know how I'm always talking about coffee. So we were running to this grocery store, to this gas station mart, to get some half and half. And she's like, I don't like walking into gas stations. And I'm like, neither do I. So we were power posing outside of it. And when we went in, I'm like, just walk in more confidently than you normally would. Like, just have an air of confidence after our power posing. True story. We went in there, and the woman working gave us the half and half for free and a donut for my daughter. And I'm like, yeah, baby, confidence goes a long way. And, you know, like, I'm basically in my pajamas, and so is she. I was not in a confident mode. We were just power posing, and it totally worked. So power pose, get into a more confident stance, have some things to talk about so that you can put social anxiety behind you, so that you can feel more confident. When you leave porn behind, your confidence escalates. And I know this was a question that was that shot by before, is that, you know, how do I feel more confident? And is anything else going to change when I leave porn behind? Everything can change for you. Anything that you're struggling with, it can change. Like, seriously, your thinking. So talking about porn induced ADHD, we know that porn is, not only is it frying out the reward center, it is deactivating your frontal lobe, proven by science. And a hypoactive, too low of activity in the frontal lobe, is the same brain pattern for ADHD. But think about it this way. Every time you watch porn, you're putting your brain into that ADHD mode. So when you stop watching porn, you stop pulling your brain into that ADHD mode, and it's going to start going back into its own mode, to the healthy optimal mode. That's the unwiring part, without you doing anything. But then when you fire it up again, and that's why I always tell you to get on purpose in your work. When you think about your work and you take small action steps towards a larger goal, like, just for me, just think about me trying to create a nonprofit organization, which I literally know nothing about, is challenging my brain. And because it's a new world, I don't know anything about it. And I was joking with my husband that I had to go on the meeting with the nonprofit attorney, who I'm sure thinks I'm a total spaz, because I can't, it's a new world. I don't even know any of the things she's talking about. We're doing budgets, we're doing IRS stuff, we're doing laws and things like that. So, you know, I enter into this arena without knowing anything, but that's going to shift because I'm willing to take the risk. And I'm thinking about it in a new way. I'm doing all this thinking, executive function thinking. I'm firing up my frontal lobe, and that's going to keep my brain healthy. And there's studies that show that people who are on purpose and have things that they care about in their work, their relationships, and their hobbies, they live longer. That is a true story. That is what I want for everybody here. I want you to not only have to keep watching pornography to feel okay in your life, I want you to step away from that habit, step into your full potential by figuring out what work you like and doing it. And I want to broach one hater comment. You know, haters are going to hate, and I don't take that to heart. And I see people who are haters as needing more love and healing than others. But I'll talk about hair loss in a second. I see people going back and forth there about it, but you know, haters are going to hate. But someone wrote, like, you know, you just say that because you're a fancy doctor and, you know, you don't care about the little man. That's not true at all. And I am here doing what I love, and I'm on purpose. And I have 5 children plus the hubs. Actually, I have 6 children, including my stepson. They're all doing what they want. They are not doing what I want them to do. That's very, very important. I want each one of them to be on purpose. You know, my hubs loves his job, and he loves to golf at his golf club, a fancy golf club, not a place that I like to go. That's his thing. And he is in his own there, and he's thriving. My kids, I have an artist and a musician. I have a smart, analytical kid who's going to be an engineer. You know, I've got an equestrian. I've got a gamer, hardcore gamer, who's a Twitch streamer, who I encourage him to do that. My daughter wants to be a makeup artist. You know, they're doing what puts them on purpose. You do that too. That's what I want. Okay, let's get to some questions. So let's see. Oh, thanks. The course is helping you out. I have 3 courses, a small, medium, and big one, and I encourage you to check it out because they are hopefully affordably priced for what you get, and they will absolutely help you. They're built on neuroscience. Okay, so let's talk about fetishes because this is something that I want to talk to a lot of people about. Honestly, I don't even like the word fetish, to be honest. I mean, you hear me. I don't really like the word addiction. I don't like diagnoses. Never have, never will. What I do want you to understand is that for some reason, that has been built in and really linked to your arousal template in your brain. Whatever thing that is, it's highly arousing for you. So, number one, what has happened for most, quote unquote fetishes is that they get linked into your brain when you're very young because science shows the earlier that something kind of is entered into your brain and it is highly arousing, that massive dopamine flood, it gets linked more quickly and it becomes harder to unlink that. So many people who have a fetish, they know that they've had it for a long time since they were very young. So it becomes difficult to unlink. And one of the questions that I've got in the comments from before is that, is there a way to integrate fetishes? And honestly, that's my approach. If you have a fetish that's appropriate and healthy for you and healthy for a partner, and I know appropriate is a loaded word, I'll break it down in a second, but if it's healthy and it can be incorporated in and it's part of your arousal template, but it's not harming you, it's not doing anything bad to you or your brain, and it's not doing anything bad to your partner's brain or to your partner, then it can be incorporated. So, some people have foot fetishes. Having an arousal around your partner's feet and being able to have some play there is healthy. So you can incorporate it in. Other fetishes aren't. They involve harm or they involve being hurt yourself or hurting other people. Those you will have to try to unlink them. And the more you try, you will no longer take that neural pathway and you'll be taking a new one. You have to let it unwire. But there may be some vigilance that you have to keep around that behavior. The better way is if you can incorporate that in a healthy way, it's going to make healthy sex more fun for you, which is the goal, right? The goal here is that you leave pornography behind because it's not real and you find a way to engage in a healthy relationship with a partner and to incorporate those things that you find arousing in. But also recognizing that if you've been watching porn for a long time, many of the things that you find arousing are not healthy for you or your partner. So, the way to, in the best way, is to incorporate fetishes or anything that you find arousing that can be healthy into your healthy sex life that you build with a partner. I want to tell you that I am creating a playlist for September on how to attract a healthy partner, healthy being the operative word. And then if you have a partner, how to establish a healthy partnership. Because if you're going to pornography, there's something that's off in your partnership. And if you are going to pornography, then you are not in a position to build a healthy partnership yourself. So we're going to need to talk about that. But at the same time, we will be doing that an entire playlist because it can be tricky. But I'm here to tell you, the healthier you make yourself. And it comes down to communication and interaction style when we're talking about partners and not including anything unhealthy into your sex life. Okay, so let me see here. I'm reading. Seems like our chat's getting away from us here, people. Let's reel it in. Let me see here. Thank you, Eric Drake. I appreciate your support. How to get through the first week if you keep relapsing? That's a great question. So let's focus there for a minute because relapses are the hardest part of the first week, first couple weeks, first month, and how to do it. So I just made a video on relapses, and getting a blocker can be a really important aspect of it. Getting an accountability partner, kind of telling somebody about this challenge. And when you we know that this habit is formed from guilt and shame, and in guilt and shame, it percolates and becomes worse. So the way out of that is to tell someone and then be accountable to them and to put fences up. So it's about the defense and then about the offense. So when you put your fences up, it's not as easy for you to get back to the screen as you're putting your offensive strategy in place. And I'm going to continue to talk about that, but one more thing that I saw in the comments was, about habit replacement and motivation. Motivation, I made a video on motivation. I don't think it's come out yet based on science, but basically, motivation is a 3-step brain process that right now is not happening well if you are watching pornography. So you can't count on motivation because the motivational neural mechanisms are being skewed by pornography consumption. They will come online for you as you leave the screen behind. In the short run, that's why we need defense. And then while we're setting up our offensive strategy, the defense keeps you away long enough for that brain pattern to unwire so you can start rewiring it. That's why I tell people to get the brain training headband. There's not one person that yet I have talked to that, based upon my recommendation, that doesn't love it. Every person who's gotten it likes it or loves it and is seeing the value in it. It's helping them. And the real power of it is that it can help you gain traction and momentum by changing your brain before you're required to do anything. So when you go to put your fence up and to avoid watching, your brain doesn't need to watch it as much. And that would be a number one strategy. I don't sell that headband. I have the link that's in the YouTube channel that you can get 15% off through the manufacturer. And I did create a Brain Training 101 program. It's only $49, but it teaches you to use the headband and it teaches you to interpret your graph so you know what's going on in it. That would be a number one way, because you have to change the way that your brain is working to be strong enough to resist urges and cravings. The second way is create a pivot plan, know ahead of time what you're going to do and make it as dopamine producing as possible. And then the second you have an urge or craving, you literally have 3 seconds. You need to pivot and run and go do that thing. And especially if you can get out of isolation into connection with other people, that will help you also. So, that is how we can avoid relapses in the short run. It's tricky though, and that's why the headband makes it much easier because it starts rewiring your brain in the right direction. But create a pivot plan, know what you're going to do, have somebody hold you accountable to it, get some small wins. If you get 1 small win or 2 small wins, it can be really powerful. I made another video on, losing big. Your brain will automatically go back to where it's getting the reward and it will avoid a big loss because it shifts your brain. And that's the video that I made for this week. And, that's why when you tell someone, the loss becomes bigger, it becomes real. When you shed light on it, it becomes real. And then it's easier to stay away because your brain's in a different spot. Okay, so let me see what else we got here. What are some effects of porn on ADHD and how to recover? The ADHD brain pattern is one that is using too much slow brain speed in the frontal lobe. And we know porn deactivates the frontal lobe even more. So it's kind of like a double whammy of the ADHD pattern. So number one, when you stop watching porn, that will begin to bring your brain back. And then number two, if you use the headband, it's scientifically proven to decrease the ADHD pattern. I think it's the number one thing everybody should be using. Kratos, is that how you say it? Engineer himself. Love it. I don't know if you heard my son yelling at me, but not yelling, business bullying, we call it, because he's helping me with my new tech. Okay, let's see. Are brains of addicts differently wired than non-addicts? The answer to that is yes, we know that. So again, I don't love the word diseased, but the way that it is talked about in the International Classification of Diseases is that it's diseased neural mechanisms. And I have an infographic I made on that. I'll make sure if it's not on my Instagram feed that I put it there. Because and I've talked about it before, but basically what happens is when your brain is exposed the first time, it will calibrate and will want dopamine more than a non-addicted brain. So your brain wants to come back at this heightened level, much more so than someone who hasn't been exposed and hasn't trained their brain to keep going back to the screen. That's why for some people, they don't see and you'll see it in the comments too on this channel, that people will be like, porn's not addicting. I don't know what the big deal is. I'm like, that's a person who never was exposed when they were young. They never got in the habit of watching it consistently, frequently, and with any intensity. Their brain isn't wired the same way as a brain that needs to go back for more and more and more. And unfortunately, more people's brains are being wired to go back all the time than ever before. And we're going to hit this critical mass. That's why I call it a silent tsunami, that more men's brains than ever are in this go back to porn all the time thing. And women are starting to do it now too. And what it's going to do is people aren't going to be able to think as well. And people aren't going to, I know I saw a comment too where people are like, no one's working anymore. So that is why they're watching more porn. It's a cycle. It's a vicious cycle back and forth. So no work that's purposeful makes you go back for more porn. More porn makes you not be able to do any work. Okay. Oh, thanks, Mark Thompson, because I have to spit straight facts. You know how it goes here. I have to give you the truth bombs, whether you want to hear it or not. Yep. No spamming in the chat, please, because I think this community is the coolest thing ever, and I'm so proud to be part of it. And let's keep it super cool. Okay. So provocative movies cause dopamine drip. Should I completely avoid them completely? That's from Jared. In the short run, you probably should, because it is a dopamine drip. But once you heal your brain, then you won't be triggered by them. And if you just think about it in the model of addiction, right now your brain is addicted to dopamine, which is that motivation back to the reward of easy button pleasure. So then when you watch a movie and a provocative scene comes on, your brain starts dripping it, and it's going to lead you back, or it's going to keep you in a brain mode where you're getting more drips, and that's not a healthy thing for you. But once you unwire that pattern and you rewire the pattern for the healthy, the optimal brain pattern that isn't looking for dopamine in the screen because it's getting it in your world, then we want to hardwire that pattern in. If you can hardwire that pattern in, you don't usually have to be as vigilant against that. But at the same time, if you're watching a movie with people and you don't want to skip that scene, then I get it. You can walk out. Or if you, want to skip it, it's better for your brain for sure. You could just get 5 teenagers. There's nothing more awkward than watching a sex scene with your 5 children. My husband put on, what did he put on a while ago? Why Him? He put on Why Him with all my kids. I'm not even kidding. True story. I'm like, dude, this movie is not appropriate for the kids. And he's like, it's fine. I'm like, it's not fine. It's such a good movie and it's so funny, but like out of the gates, it's totally raunchy. I walked away. Then I made him turn it off, because you want to talk about uncomfortable? Watch it with 5 kids. Okay, so let's see. Recently stopped PMO. Many days, all my normal desires are completely wiped out. That's from Shreya. Goes back to motivation and what I just said. And this is the hard part, but it will come online for you, is that your brain is used to hitting the easy button to get that dopamine flood, which is dopamine's the motivation towards reward and pleasure neurotransmitter. So when you stop using the easy button, your brain's like, I don't know where the motivation is anymore. I don't know where the rewards are. And you have to teach your brain to go towards goal-directed behavior, get on purpose in your work, your relationships, and your hobbies. Start doing them, whether you're motivated to do them or not. And I know it is difficult for sure, because I talk to people all the time. They're like, I stopped working out. I stopped hanging out with my friends. Force yourself to see a friend. Force yourself to get a workout in, where I always joke that I'm going to crank some 90s. I know that's not a workout term, but it annoys my kids. So work out every day, whether you want to or not. And you'll start bringing your brain on to be more motivated. And it will be, again, it's a cycle. So you have to break that cycle and get into the mode. 99 channel, day 40. I don't feel any different. Why? This is a great question. Thank you. The reason being is that you likely haven't rewired in the optimal brain pattern. This goes back to what I wanted to say about habit replacement not working. You can't distract yourself out of this. You have to get engaged. So the way that you fire up your brain again is by getting maximally engaged in your life. And I don't know if you feel like you've done that, but when you do that, you will then start to be able to activate the frontal lobe and heal the reward center. So you probably need to do more things that re-engages your brain in the real world to get dopamine there. How do you deal with feeling pressure and the want to relapse? Again, likely it's going to be very difficult for you, and that's why some fences, some plans to block yourself. There's other ways that you can do it too. There are tech lock boxes. Many people I work with will lock their phone in a box, literally with a timer, so you can't get it until the next day. And so, the way out is through. I'm sorry to tell you, and this was a question from the comments. How do I, avoid the evening time or the nighttime when it's the most difficult to resist urges? You have to build a new nighttime routine. And I know how difficult this can be, but some of the notes that I wrote myself are going back to the concept of fantasy is if you can find a way to engage your brain in healthy fantasy, not sexual fantasy, but sci-fi, if you like sci-fi, romantic comedies, if you like that, but fantasy that's not real, because your brain is looking for fantasy to take the edge off of reality. That's why, as much as dramas can be really good movies, I hardly ever watch any drama movies because I got enough drama going on in my own life that I don't want to watch somebody else's drama. If I'm going to watch TV, I will watch a show that has some level of fantasy. And the same thing for books. For a lot of men who are trying to leave porn behind, if you find a series of books that have some fantasy, again, not sexual, that can help you kind of get into that fantasy mode, and you can start reading at night. Watch a show, read a couple chapters of your book, which naturally brings the energy in your brain down and takes it off of your day, can help you get better sleep, and you can resist those urges while you lock your phone up so you can't go back to it. And really, like, putting your phone in a public place or having an accountability partner can be really, really powerful in the short run. And you don't have to do that forever, just long enough for that pattern to unwire and you start rewiring your brain in the right direction. Let's see. Yep, adolescence is a very fragile time for brains because brains are developing highly then, and they're highly impressionable. Going back to the question about social anxiety, I told my children this because they said they don't want to go for runs in our neighborhood. Our neighborhood's lovely. No one's looking at anybody. I go for runs every day, and I feel glad that I'm the only one out there. I'm like, look at me, I'm the only one running. And so my kids are like, you can pay me to go for a run in this neighborhood because I see people running by, which means, this is what my son said, I see people running by, which means if I run, people are going to see me running by. I'm like, who cares? Go for a run. And going back to neuroscience, and the teenage brain, there's a huge book called The Teenage Brain. And one of the takeaways from it is that up until the age of 28, adolescence, the brain is developing. And going back to social anxiety, that frontal lobe is unwiring and rewiring itself as it develops. And teenagers and young adults are highly sensitive to social anxiety because they think people are looking at them more than people are. And part of it is due to the rewiring of the brain. And a cool study that they did was they put people of different ages in a storefront in the window. And I was telling my son this the other day. And so all you had to do is sit in the storefront in the window for like 10 minutes. And they put teenagers, and then they put, 20 somethings, then they put 30 somethings, then they put 40 somethings. And the adolescents and the young 20s, their brains lit up on fire with anxiety just by being put in a storefront. The 30-year-old brains, barely had any anxiety. The 40-year-old brains had no anxiety. The 50-year-old brains, had less. The 60-year-old brains enjoyed it, right? You can imagine that one. So during those years of adolescence, your brain is really rewiring and unwiring. And, it's a time of change. And that's why it's so volatile, that if you create these neural pathways that you're going back to over and over and over and over and over again, then that is very unhealthy, and you're wiring that in. So the takeaway from that is, if you're young, if you are under 28 years old, your brain hasn't developed yet. And if you can leave this habit behind sooner rather than later, your brain will unwire itself faster and easier, and it will rewire itself faster and easier because of development. You will have development on your side. But going back to neuroplasticity has been shown to be effective, and people's brains can change across the entire lifetime. If you're older than that, your brain can do it also. The oldest person that I have in my practice, my husband and I have a practice together, Lee Brain and Spine. The oldest person there, he's likely 88 now because he was 80. We moved here almost 9 years ago. He's been in the practice since then, and 88 years old. And when he came in, he had a lot of brain problems, not because of porn, but similar, kind of aging, similar patterns of slowing and not enough power. And he's in great shape. So, he's 88 years old and his brain's still moving in the right direction. So, okay. So let me see, PMO, make me more clear towards life and spirituality. Okay, so yep, the king of nepotism. Thank you for the comments. Did PMO addiction make me more clear towards life and spirituality? So this is a great question. And even though it is a little spammy here, we're going to let that slide. The question is, and actually I just had a long discussion about this the other day, is that people think porn's good for them originally. And you might see that in the comments on the channel, like, porn makes me feel great. It makes me feel confident. It does in the short run. The short run is like, especially in the beginning, when you're starting to give your brain this dopamine flood, it's taking the edge off. It might feel like it's giving you clarity. And especially if you're running hot in the first place and you were a stressed out person, which that's the person that usually likes to go towards the screen for dopamine. If you were stressed out and then you found porn and it's like, giving your brain these hits, you might actually think that it's helping you to be more productive in the short run. Unfortunately, it's damaging your brain significantly in the long run, and that is not healthy for you. So it might feel good for you, but when you leave it behind, you will get back to the place where your brain is clear. Now, here is the but. The important part is that you have to create a life that doesn't stress you out. And so many people think they can't have a life that has a job that you feel great and you want to get up and do. You can have that. That was my point before. You want to be a plumber? Get up and be a plumber. You want to be an engineer? Get up and be an engineer. Don't get up and be a thing you don't want to be. If you want to get up and be a stay-at-home parent, do that. Where the joy is, go, because where the joy is, that's where the dopamine is. Look at your relationships. Fix them. All relationships can be healed, and on your part. They might not all be able to be healed on the other person's part. So you can either be in that relationship in the way that it is, or decide to have a different relationship, but your relationships should fill you up. And if your relationship isn't filling you up, time for new relationships. And, that doesn't mean you have to cut everybody out of your life, but it could mean that you have to distance some people. And then in your hobbies, do something you love this week. I went stand-up paddleboarding with my beautiful girly. I told the hubs I'd go golfing with him tonight, even though I'm actually pretty good. But, so I am going to go with him. We're going to do some fun things. Okay, so let me see. Okay. I'm trying to see here. How much time will it require to unwire a porn habit? It's different for every person. 90 days is the standard, but the more things you do, the faster your brain heals. Here's a good question. That, ma'am, I'm fantasizing one woman in my life. As soon as I remember her, I feel demotivated. Only sexual thoughts. This happens to a lot of people. And again, it's fantasy. So if you're going back to the past, I'm sorry to tell you, the past is in the past, like they say in Frozen, right? The past is in the past and the future is not here yet. That's The Whole Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. Great book. I broke it out and I started to reread it. And in it, it's simplistic too. I remember I must have read it like 20 years ago, but in it, he basically is saying that all of our problems come from being in our head all the time. And when you're in your head all the time, thinking about someone that you were with 5 years ago, that's not real. It's just fantasy and it's not serving you. So get moving towards building a relationship in the here, in the now, with someone that you can be with. Prostate health and ejaculation. If you're in a healthy relationship with a partner and you're having lots of fun sex as much as possible, your prostate's going to be fine. Now, if you're young and you can't be in a relationship, start moving towards building intimacy with someone that you can, because most people want a relationship. Most people want connection, and most people want to have sexual experiences and not be caught in this porn cycle by themselves. So your prostate's going to be totally fine. Totally fine. People use that as an excuse. So let's see. Relapses are tough, and I do have lots of videos on why you might be relapsing. Let's see. I have a problem with family, and in my head always get angry easily. Okay, anger. Let's talk about anger for a second. What is anger? Anger is a call for resolving something. So if you're angry about something, that's your reaction to something else that somebody's doing. And we already talked about this. You don't have to let what that person's doing impact you. When I get angry, because I very rarely get angry these days, I immediately think to myself, what am I angry about? Usually it's because expectations are not happening the way that you wanted something, or somebody else's expectations for you are not happening. So it goes back to when you're on purpose in your life and you're choosing what works for you, and you're not worried about what other people think about that. And I know it's a difficult place to get to. You can be at peace because you're on purpose, and that person doesn't have to approve of it, but they do have to respect it. And if they can't respect it, then they don't deserve a forefront place in your life. And I know that becomes really difficult when it's family, but as you grow and you develop your emotional maturity, my whole program and everything I'm talking to you here about is developing emotional maturity, so you can move towards uncomfortable feelings and not have to run away and escape from them. That's what needs to be done with your family. You have to say to your family, I don't appreciate you treating me this way, or whatever thing you think about me. You can think that, but I'm not going to own that, because that's not my reality. And I've done those things. I'm teaching my kids to do those things to me, right? How twisted is that? But it is great. It is perfect, because I'm teaching them to go call me out on my generational junk that I learned from my parents. So when my kids will say, really, really, Ma, and I'll be like, really? Then I will question that, and I will try to move towards, whatever's uncomfortable for us, so that we can resolve it and move on. Okay. I only have a couple more minutes because I actually have appointments that start at 1 p.m. So let's just try to get through. Is willpower enough to leave a bad habit? Absolutely not. You need 100% commitment, and you need to develop a plan of discipline. Willpower and motivation are kind of the same thing to me, to a certain extent. Willpower means you're going to stay strong enough to push through. You're going to need an element of that, but what you're also going to need is a plan. Another takeaway from this live today: make a plan. You have to change things in your life. You can't go, up, here I go, wish me luck, and then change nothing. Change your physical environment. Get your tech out of the places that you are most at risk. Lock your phone up. Move your computer out into the living room. Make a change in your physical environment. Make a change in your mental environment. The number one thing you can do is get a book. Get a book that a motivational book. I have hundreds of them. I don't know which ones might be good. Right now I'm reading Jordan B. Peterson's second book. I know a lot of people on the channel are a fan of his, but that's some tough reading. It's not for the faint of heart, and I enjoy it very much, but it's some advanced concepts. But get a motivational book and read 4 minutes of it a day, and it will start changing your mental space too. Yes, fasting, clean up your diet. So there's a question on fasting, is that a good idea? It can increase discipline, and intermittent fasting can be really powerful. Not eating, after 6 p.m., cleaning up your diet as much as possible. Oh, actually, David asked about intermittent fasting on a reboot. Yeah, it can. You want to keep your system clean, running clean, if you remember that. So anything in a crinkly bag, stay away from it. Eat lots of vegetables. Eat healthy, lean protein. Eat good, healthy fats. So before I jumped on here, because I have an afternoon of meetings, I had half of an avocado with a little salt and pepper. And actually I usually put lime, but I was running late, so I put a little lemon juice on it, and a protein shake. We use really clean protein. I put a tiny little bit of creatine in it. I'm going to run clean for the next couple hours. Okay. So let's see. OCD patient. So OCD comes out of that really fast brain speed. If you struggle with OCD, that is because your brain's on fire. get the headband if you can afford it, and then bring down that speed. Use meditation to be able to do it. You have to calm your brain down. If nothing else, make sure you give your brain time and space each day to reduce the energy and come down. Okay, so let's see. I'm going to have to wrap up. Hopefully, I have gotten to most of the questions, but the good news is I will be here every Friday now. I've blocked out the time in my schedule so we can get in a habit of answering questions. I'll get better at answering them faster and quicker. And especially after we cover some of these big themes, I'll be able to just address people's questions more quickly. I'm going to be going on Instagram live also. I'm trying to make myself available to be able to answer questions and really move you forward, because this is the most important thing you can do for yourself. I'm not kidding you. It is ruining your brain. It's destroying your relationships, whether you know it or not. It's probably making you angrier than you deserve to be. It's making you irritable. It's time to leave the habit behind and get on purpose in your life. Okay. Thank you for joining me here today. I'll be back here next week. So I'll put up a video and we can put more comments in. And in the meantime, control your brain or it'll control you. Thanks again for joining me, and good luck this week. Change something, physical, mental. Go change something. You got this. I'll see you next week. Bye, everybody. Thank you.